Charles from GMAT Ninja here, still here, hour number 16, I believe. Our nonstop 24-hour marathon raising money for Ukrainian refugee charities, 5 great charities. Visit our page, gmatclub.com/donate. Learn more about those charities. You can donate directly or donate through us. We'll spread the money around all 5 charities. Again, my job through this marathon, give you the best I can in 24 hours of crash course on the GMAT. Theme here, we're not necessarily going through all the basics, but I want to really kind of pick on the things that people of all difficulty levels do wrong. What are the pitfalls? What are the things that lead you to make unforced errors? What are the things that make you lead you to make sloppy errors? What are the things that everybody can tighten up, almost regardless of your level? Now, as we get in the back, we're getting into the last almost third of this now. Critical reasoning for this one. We're going to be talking about hard inference questions, uncategorizable critical reasoning questions. So again, in this little crash course, 3 lessons on critical reasoning total. First one, talking about kind of the bulk of those questions, where there is a conclusion, might be strength, it might be weaken, might be assumption, might be find the flaw, might be evaluate the argument. Either way, structure is still the same. Keep it crisp, find that conclusion. Their words are my words, make sure you're getting exactly their words. Great. Second chunk, second tier of questions. Yeah, there's some structure to it. Depends on the question. Paradox, make sure you find that paradox, get the author's exact words, same thing. Accept questions, little things you can do to clean up your hygiene. That's what we talked about in hour number 8 or 9. Now here, this was kind of by request, something people were asking me about on the forum. Can you do some just hard inference questions? And what's really maddening about these, and I think why that request has come up, is somebody's look at these inference questions and it's just like, yeah, there's no obvious structure, right? We're not saying find the conclusion, anchor yourself to something. We're just saying, yo, read it well, be precise. That's it. That's all you're doing. And there's not necessarily a ton more to it in terms of technique. Similar kind of thing. Wow, very good eye. People are seeing that my t-shirt is irritating my neck. That's really funny. You guys have been watching me for too long. So those inference questions, there's not a whole lot you can do with it other than just get really strong at noticing those details. So we're going to dive into that on a couple of my favorite questions. Then we're going to deal with a few questions that are kind of uncategorized. I think we get a little bit obsessive sometimes in the test prep world, where we kind of say like, hey, you know, this slots into the category of paradoxes and discrepancies, or this one is strength and weaken, and we love to categorize and try to oversimplify. Be really careful with that. Some questions just don't fall neatly into a category. You've got to let the question kind of lead you along, give you some super hard ones, or what I think are super hard ones according to the stats on all of those things. All right, we're going to lead off with one of my favorites. Again, I think most of you guys, if you've watched any of my critical reasoning or reading comp content, big fan of LSAT. A couple of reasons. Stretches your GMAT materials, limited number of official GMAT questions. If you're shooting for that super high verbal score, love doing LSAT. Are all the questions exactly the same as the GMAT? No. But over time, that correlation is really strong. You're going to get better at fighting your way through. The ones I tend to pick on for things like this, for these GMAT lectures with our GMAT students, those are the ones that really do sound a lot like GMAT questions and deal with exactly the same skills. So, all right, with all that said, you're going to love this. Okay, really going to get to this question. Robustus bones contain a lower ratio of strontium to calcium than erectus bones. And we know that the lower the ratio of strontium to calcium and fossilized bones, that means the more meat the creature ate. We also know that erectus ate meat. Fantastic. A couple thoughts here, guys. One is I would absolutely love to give you a nice clean thing where, hey, you see an inference question, which the following most strongly supports, different way of phrasing inference. I would love to give you a nice, really clean, here's the magic formula, you're going to do this every time, punch it in, it's great. It just doesn't exist here. All you can really do is be precise about the language. All that preaching we do when it's their words or your words, their words or your words, when you're looking at, let's say, conclusions on a nice, straightforward weakened or strengthened passage, the hope is that that filters into here and you're not getting sloppy as you read. And again, seeing wonderful job in the live group. We got about 95% correct here, which makes me happy. Don't know if that's because the people struggling are being shy. So statements above support which the following. One last quick wisecrack. Pre-thinking, we've had some interesting debates about it today. I think that's always fun. I personally don't love anticipating answers because I feel like that can bias me. And then it's hard for me to see what's really going on. I'd rather just make sure I'm connecting the facts as best I can. So I know that the robustus has lower ratio of calcium and calcium than erectus bones. I know that whenever that ratio is lower, it means more meat. So based on these two facts, I can say that robustus ate more meat than erectus. I don't think that's going on too much of a limb here. I wouldn't even call that pre-thinking. It's just kind of saying, well, based on these facts, I can draw that conclusion. That's great. Not a whole lot more I can do. Again, I wish there was some magic formula, but there really isn't. Someone's pointing out I've talked about this question in an earlier video. I don't think everybody's watched that video, though. That was a long time ago. So is it fair to say, answer choice A, the diet of robustus contained at least some meat? Well, yeah, got to be true, right? At least we're saying that it ate more meat than erectus. Keep A. Again, the temptation here is to say, oh, it's definitely A. We got that here. Let's move on. But again, I always want you to find 4 wrong answers. What if I misread something? Watch your back. Take the extra time. It's not going to take us that long to go through these in all likelihood. Meat in the diet, answer choice B of Homo erectus, was higher in strontium than the meat in the diets of other hominins. Notice the argument says absolutely nothing about strontium in the meat. It's talking about the ratio of strontium and calcium in the fossilized bones and how that correlates to meat consumption. Has nothing to do with how much strontium is in the meat itself. B is out. C, diet of Homo erectus richer in calcium than the diet of robustus. Same exact thing as B. Nothing that we're saying here has anything to do with the idea that calcium in the diet contributes to calcium in the bones here. We're just saying more meat alters that ratio of strontium to calcium. C's out. D, the diets of both of them contain less strontium and calcium. Same error, right? We're not talking about strontium and calcium in the diet, just in the bones. And correlating that to meat consumption. And E, a little bit out of left field, the process of fossilization altered the ratio in both of the bones. We have no idea whether that's true or not. And A is our winner. Fantastic. Party on. Next one. As we get into kind of the last third or so of the crash course here, more and more of the stuff we'll have a few topics here that are pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about overlapping sets, going to bring in, I'm actually going to get a pinch hitter for that. One of my tutors is going to come in, Harry, and do a lesson that I planned out, give me a little breather. So some of that stuff's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to play with some hard geometry later on. But a lot of things we're going to do, sentence correction, critical reasoning, reading comp, and then obviously that last batch of questions from Buñuel. We're kind of getting to things where it's like, yeah, the magic formula is there is no magic formula. This is one of those examples where it's just, okay, it's a wall of text, read it carefully, figure out what's true and what's not. Not a lot I can really give you where it's like, hey, do this structure. If we try to impose a structure here, we're going to get you into trouble. And now I'm kind of seeing people admit to the struggles as they kind of keep grappling with this for a few minutes. And that's typically what I see on this question. Probably a pretty high error rate from pretty good students on this for kind of our personal, our private tutoring students. Really, what's the issue here? Like, what makes this passage hard? It's not that the language is that dense. I don't think it is. So I get some people that are looking at this and kind of going, oh, it's not that hard. It's 600 level, whatever. What I think is hard about it is that it kind of shifts language on you a little bit here and there. So running through it pretty quickly. Okay, a study said that although most adults estimated the diets to correspond closely with guidelines, most of their diets didn't come close to their recommendations. And then kind of this next wave of things in this fairly long passage is all about people's estimates. So men and women underestimated the amount of fat, overestimated their intake of other foods. And then in most food categories, now we're back to women didn't meet the recommendations. And then in that last sentence, they underestimated their fat intake. That's about estimates. And then they met the recommendations for this and fell short. Wait a minute. Whole mountain of facts. But the thing that makes people struggle here is kind of missing that distinction between, on one hand, we're talking about whether people estimate their own diets correctly, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff about whether they actually meet the guidelines. Those are kind of separate thoughts. Mistakes I see here, people shoehorn a structure onto this. They say, oh, the conclusion is something. They pull a sentence out. and decide that that's a conclusion and then sort of start hallucinating evidence. I see that pretty commonly on this. Don't do that. There's no need to. It's an inference question, which the following is most strongly supported. Don't start hallucinating structure if it's not there. That's part of good, clean process. If there's a structure, be faithful to it. Keep your language really crisp. Their words are my words. If there is no structure, don't hallucinate one. Trying to shoehorn everything into some sort of rubric or some sort of structure, some sort of diagram gets you into trouble. Again, I'm not so sure that anybody's doing that in the live group, but hard to tell. Second, this particular question, why I like it as a teaching example, it's that scope shift kind of thing. Not exactly scope, but we're kind of shifting focus back and forth throughout the passage, meeting the recommendations or not meeting them, and then estimating our diets correctly or not. That's what makes it tough. I'm not going to spend a lot of time kind of going through the individual bits. We can end up with just a huge mess on the page here. Just going to start jumping into the answer choices in this case. Which of the following is most strongly supported? A, both men and women in the study misjudged their compliance in every food category. That's not true. They didn't always misjudge their compliance, right? We have no evidence of that exactly. That most adults estimated their diets to correspond closely. Most of their diets did not come close. We don't know that they botched that in every single category. We really have no evidence that's the case. They go through some of them. There's sort of these generalizations. Most didn't come close to the recommendations. Most estimated their diets to closely do it. We don't know that they were wrong in every single category. So we can eliminate A. B, in the study, more men than women were aware that in some food categories, their diet failed to reflect the recommendations closely. I'm not sure where we're getting that from. So do we know that more men than women were aware that their diet failed? I don't see any evidence of that at all. Get rid of B. C, women in the study were more aware than men were of the recommended intake of breads. What do we know about breads here? We know that men met the recommendations for breads. Okay, that's great. We don't know whether they were aware of the recommendations. We know that they met them. Those are two different things. What do we know about women in breads? That they didn't, in most food categories, they didn't meet the recommendations. We don't know if bread is one of them. And this is really interesting. So I'm actually seeing in the comments, I'm seeing exactly the challenge here. So women in the study were more aware than men were of the recommended intake. We know that the men met the recommendations for breads. We don't know if they were aware of it. So again, a lot of what's happening here in the passage is that people are misestimating, and they're also not meeting the recommendations in a lot of cases. So just because you met the recommendation, maybe you did it not thinking about the recommendation, where you're aware of what the recommendation is, not necessarily. And that's what makes this passage a little bit tricky. We don't know that women were more aware than men of the recommended intake of breads. We just know that men met it, don't know anything about their awareness or whether their estimates were on point. D, men in the study estimated their daily intake of fruits and vegetables to be significantly lower than it in fact was. So they fell short. So what we do know from that very last sentence, men fell short of the recommendations in all their categories. So they aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables. Do we know if they estimated it to be much lower than it in fact was? I don't see anything there at all. We know that they underestimated their intake of fat. We know they fell short of the recommendations in fruits and vegetables. We don't know about their estimation. We know that they fell short. We don't know about their estimation of it. That's the subtle nuance. E, hope we like it. Most men in the study did not consume the amounts of fruits and vegetables the nutritional guidelines recommend. That's it. That's exactly that last sentence. So we know that men fell short. The confusing thing is the sentence starts with men underestimated their fat intake. We're talking about estimates, and then we switch over to meeting the recommendations. It's that going back and forth between the estimate and the recommendations that makes it tough. Again, no magic here. It's just that really, really close reading and making sure you sniff test and double check and make sure you're on the right track. Really interesting to kind of see in the live chat, mostly right answers from people. But as we kind of got in the discussion, it was really kind of fun to see people go, well, no, this is what it said in the passage. And it's like, nope, you're kind of falling into that scope shift, but it'll say something about meeting the recommendations and you're reading it as an estimate or vice versa. Welcome to the joys of the harder questions as you get into inferences here. And again, really good job overall. Got a lot of E answers out of the live group. This next one, official question, GMAT. I love this comment, and it's interesting to kind of see it pop up on the screen, because what I was thinking, and if you've watched my critical reasoning videos before, you've heard me say stuff like this, kind of same with sense correction and reading comp. What makes it hard? Two dimensions of difficulty. One is you just get obliterated by the language, too hard to understand the passage. That's one. Yeah, it's maybe happened to some of you guys. Like if your English is pretty weak or you're not much of a reader, maybe you're reading a passage like this and just going, I don't understand it. I'm not sure that's happened to a lot of you guys, even the non-native speakers. It's not that it's so, what's here that's so hard to understand. Maybe you can't really connect with it. You don't know much about theater. Okay, fine. But the language isn't that dense. That's one dimension. The other dimension is exactly what Abraham is, and I apologize for mispronunciations and names, especially at this hour. It's exactly it, right? They often, you kind of get these situations where it's like, yeah, the right answer feels wrong. Maybe wrong answers feel right. And very, very commonly, these harder questions on the GMAT in particular, it just feels like they all come out of left field. And this is an official question. This is GMAT, not LSAT, where it's like, yeah, I can't make any sense of any of these. None of these seem relevant at all to what we're talking about here. It's exactly what it feels like. Like this really is the dimension of difficulty that I think is the biggest challenge at the high levels. What can you do about it? Again, the magic formula is there is no magic formula. I really wish I could say something to you guys and go, oh, well, you just need to put it into this structure and you're going to get it. Not the case, unfortunately. All you can really do is battle through it as best you can. Try to put these into try to connect it as best you can. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. It's a really slow burn sometimes on these tough questions. And again, if your target is something around a 40 on verbal, I'm not crying my eyes out if you miss this one or struggle on it a little bit. It's a tough one. All right. Gonna just kind of chat through the passage a little bit. Again, things like this that don't have a lot to anchor to, there's no conclusion. I don't necessarily find it all that valuable to write a ton down. I'm not gonna, make you watch me scribble a bunch of stuff. So this play from 18th century Italy. Now we get to the director's claim that the production is as similar to the original as possible. And it's like, well, Harlequin the Clown looks like a 20th century, kind of gives a performance much like a 20th century comedian Groucho Marx. Marx was very much within the acting tradition that started in 16th century Italy. So, okay, the director's saying that it's as close as you can get. And even this actor that's modeling himself after a 20th century guy, well, that 20th century guy modeled himself after a 16th century style. Okay, fair enough. What's the question asking? Uncategorizable, in my opinion. The considerations given, I don't like that language, stuck with it, best serve as an argument that what? I mean, are we looking for a conclusion here? Is this an inference? Why bother even categorizing it, right? Like, what good does that do us? It's something I see people do on the forum all the time. Well, what kind of question is it? What kind of question is it? Who cares, right? Answer it. So which one of these is going to kind of work? So everything that's up there works as an argument that what happens. So whatever's going to happen in the correct answer is something that, is kind of supported in a sense by the passage. All right. A, modern audiences would find it hard to tolerate certain characteristics of a historically accurate performance of an 18th century play. That's coming out of left field. I have no idea why that would be the case here. If anything, we could maybe make a weak argument that the director's claiming the opposite, that it's as close as is possible in a modern theater. But we know nothing about the audience's ability or willingness to tolerate certain characteristics or finding it hard to tolerate it. I don't see how that argument is made here at all. So A is out. B, Groucho Marx once performed the part of the character. So we're looking for, again, the correct answer is going to be something that this passage is going to serve as part of an argument that something occurred. So the passage is going to kind of support in some way the correct answer. That Groucho Marx once performed the part of the character in La Finestra doesn't make any sense here either. No idea why that would be true. C, in the United States, the training of actors in the 20th century is based on principles that do not differ radically from those that underlay the training of actors in 18th century Italy. Do we think the author's leading us there and is saying that in general, actors in the 20th century are trained based on principles established or that are not so different than those in 18th century Italy? Not at all, right? So the director is making the case that for this particular play, it's as similar as possible to the original in a modern theater, but not trying to make any claims or start to make an argument about the training of actors overall in the 20th century. That's not it. D, the performance of the actor who plays Harlequin in La Finestra does not serve as evidence against the director's claim. I hate this. What does that even mean? Does not serve as evidence against the director's claim. I don't know. I'm going to keep it. And I'm doing that a little bit tongue in cheek, but not really. This is actually, I think, what I would do if I ran into this question for the first time on a test, never seen it before. I'm just kind of looking at D going, what? So I'm going to keep it in. I've already eliminated 3 because they're very clearly not right. If I can get rid of E, I don't even have to grapple with D that much, and I can move on. The director of La Finestra must have advised the actor to model his performance on the comic performances of Groucho Marx. No, not at all. That is certainly not the argument that's being set up here. So the actor gives a performance very reminiscent of Groucho Marx. That might have been the actor's own choice. How do we know that the actor was asked to do it or was advised to it by the director? No idea why that would be true. Ease out. I hope we like D. I know I say that every time. Let's go back to it. The performance of the actor does not serve as evidence against the director's claim. Yeah, that actually makes sense. What's the director setting up here? What's the critic setting up here? Director claims the production is as close as possible to the original. Well, hey, this actor is modeling himself after a 20th century guy. Okay, where's the argument going next? Makes perfect sense to say that would support the argument that actor isn't evidence against the idea that this is very much like the original. Really good question that just popped up. Can we say in this type of question, the answer would be the one which you understand the least? No, can't say that. What I can say is that good hygiene on critical reasoning, reading comp sentence correction too. Certainly GRE, if any of you guys ever end up going down that road for one reason or another, you get into those vocabulary questions. My argument is just that if you don't understand it, you don't know why it's wrong, keep it in. So it is not uncommon at all on verbal, GRE, LSAT, GMAT, doesn't matter which one you're taking. It is very, very common to kind of find yourself in a spot where it's like, well, I know that 4 are wrong. I'm really confident in those eliminations. And sometimes, how frequently, maybe not that much, it'll just so happen that the one you're struggling with is right because the other 4 are clear eliminations. It's not that unusual, but I definitely wouldn't say that the answer is likely to be the one you understand the least. It happens to be, in this case, certainly the way I was kind of playing with it a little bit. Okay. So yeah, always look for 4 wrong answers, not 1 right answer. How much time do we have? We probably have enough time for just 1 more. I'm going to blitz on through here. Let's talk about chicken. Before I jump into this question, I saw a question in here somewhere, and now I can't find it. There we go. General question from Whitney. Thank you for this. I appreciate kind of these general ideas that come up. Really, this is a really good hour to do it because, again, I'm not drilling in a certain structure here, just kind of running you guys through the questions that are a little bit more like nail and jelly of the wall, to use one of my favorite terms. Just about reading carefully, watching your back, and that's it. So eliminating extreme language statements, don't agree with that at all. I think you should always notice extreme language. I think it's really important to catch those modifiers. If there's an all or a never or a nothing or something like that, yeah, better catch your eye for sure. But I think it's way too rigid to say that those are always wrong. We can point to plenty of examples where they're perfectly fine. So again, always context dependent. Anything that kind of sounds too good to be true like that, always eliminate blank. I'm sure we can come up with things like that that are always true. 2 + 2 is always 4, fair enough. But verbal, I really struggle. There's not a lot of things I can point to that are absolutes like that. Always eliminate extreme language. Makes me nervous. Again, if your goal is a 30 on verbal and you're starting at a 20, I don't really mind. But if you're watching this, you're probably shooting for something higher. No real reason to be that rigid about it. Just notice the extreme language as your friend when you catch those modifiers that denote something extreme. Pay attention to it, see if it's justified. If it's not, wipe it out. Should be easy to give it a yay or a nay, but don't get too rigid. Makes me a little nervous. Okay, so we're trying to decide whether the feed, this is another one of those questions. I mean, categorizing it, I don't think does us a bit of good. Like we can do that. We feel good about ourselves. Hey, I shoehorned it into something, but why? In deciding whether the feed would be useful, it would be most helpful to determine which of the following. It's kind of its own thing. What do we want to know in a very specific context? So in deciding whether it would be useful in raising salmonella-free chicken, for retail sale. And I'm really honing in on that phrase and going, wait a minute, that's really specific in the question. That's one of those things where it's like, I keep talking about precision of language and where to apply it. This is one of those moments where it's like, yeah, if I botch a word here, I might be in trouble. What are we interested in? Raising it for retail sale, salmonella free chicken for retail sale. Not talking about consumption in general, it's raising it for sale. So what do we want to know about it that would be really helpful to know if we're going to be successful raising this stuff for sale? Yeah, A is fantastic. Whether feeding this stuff to chickens affects the taste of their meat. If people won't eat it because it tastes like hot peppers, no good. So A is pretty good right there. And it really just kind of hinges on, are you kind of catching that's the very, very specific purpose there? Yeah, maybe we find something better. Let's be conservative, keep it in. B, whether eating capsaicin reduces the risk of salmonella poison for humans. I saw a few people pick this, which is pretty interesting. Notice that there is no scenario here in the passage where the human's going to eat the capsaicin directly, right? So it's if the chickens eat it, so the chickens will readily eat it. They don't have taste receptors for it, and they're less likely to be contaminated with salmonella if they eat that stuff. The humans are not eating it, so B actually has nothing at all to do with this argument, and B is out. C, whether chicken is more prone to salmonella contamination than other kinds of meat. Nothing to do with any comparisons here at all. We're saying that if we change how we raise the chickens, does it change whether people are going to want to buy this type of salmonella-free chicken? We're not comparing that chicken to other kinds of meat that we might buy or other non-meats. D, whether appropriate cooking of chicken contaminated with salmonella can always prevent food poisoning. Again, totally irrelevant to this. We're asking the question, so if we have the chickens munch some hot peppers, is that something that people are going to buy if we then buy that meat? So D is out. E, whether capsaicin can be obtained only from chili peppers. Again, totally irrelevant. We're interested in whether it's going to be useful to do this, not whether there's other things we could feed the chickens that are going to have the same effect. E is out. Okay. We've got this kind of funky, awkward little chunk of time left, 8 minutes. Time to do one more? What do you think? Did one of these on the short side? Let's do it. 8 minutes, try to get through this quickly. Might not give you the best explanation. Again, we got a schedule to keep here. So I'm going to hammer through this fairly quickly, but I'll give you a couple minutes on this next one. This is, we're down to our last 3 minutes before we hit the next hour. So the typical survey practices among market researchers, again, let the question steer you on these kind of uncategorizable ones. If there's something you kind of anchor yourself to, take it. If there's nothing, do your best to be precise. It's all you can do. Again, I wish there was better magic. I wish I could say, do my wonderful 7-step thing. Doesn't exist here. Typical survey practices. Among these market researchers, what are they doing? Well, the spot where they use typically is kind of in that second half. They don't survey new technologies, potential buyers. And who do they survey? They survey the managers. So managers of the companies developing the tech. Okay, well, fine. So we just want to know, why is that? Why would they do this? Doesn't feel very intuitive, right? Like, why would it be that this is something they're going to do? Seems kind of odd, right? Okay. Answer choice A, if a new technology succeeds, the commercial benefits accrue largely to the producers, not to the buyers of that technology. Not sure how that would explain sort of the research practices here. So if a new technology succeeds, the benefits accrue to the producers, but the market researchers are trying to identify the new technologies that promise to transform the marketplace. So why is it that they would focus only on the people that stand to benefit from it? Why wouldn't they want to understand the buyers? This doesn't really explain why that would be. So I can eliminate A. B, people who promote the virtues of a new technology typically fail to consider the old technology that is currently in use continues to be improved also substantially. This feels way out of left field to me. Again, I'm not at my most eloquent end of hour number 16 here. But I don't really see how people promote the virtues fail to consider. So are we talking about the managers that are promoting the virtues of the new technology? So why would that explain? So if the managers producing the new technology fail to acknowledge the benefits of the old one or the improvements in the old one, why does that explain the habits of the markets research people that refuse to talk to buyers? I don't see how that explains it at all. Like, okay, great. Enthusiasts of this technology aren't paying enough attention to the old stuff. Shouldn't matter. See, investors are unlikely. I don't know how we got to investors here. Investors are unlikely to invest substantial amounts of capital in a company whose own managers are skeptical. Well, that's fine, but the market researcher's job, says it in the past, is trying to identify new technology problems to transform the marketplace. How do we get the investors here? When it says in the passage, it's the buyers who will ultimately determine the commercial success. Why are we talking about investors? I don't really see it there. D, the potential buyers for not yet available technologies can seldom be reliably identified. Well, that's a good reason not to survey them. You don't know who they are. So would that explain why the market researchers talk to the managers? Because that's all they can get. They can't talk to the buyers. Fair enough. Hang on to D. E. The developers of a new technology are generally no better positioned than its potential buyers to gauge how rapidly the technology can be efficiently mass produced. So this actually kind of goes against it, right? Because this is saying, E is saying the developers of the technology are not necessarily well positioned. We should be talking to the buyers. But then why is it the market researchers aren't? That goes the wrong way. D's out. Oh, sorry, E's out. D's our winner. Okay, bottom of the hour. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Hour number 16 in the books.